You're listening to Living Full Out with Nancy Solari. As a professional motivational speaker, Nancy can assist you to blow through your setbacks and start living full out. If you have an inspirational story you want to share, email us at connect@livingfullout.com. Once again, here's Nancy.
Hello and welcome to the Living Full Out Show. I'm Nancy Solari, and we are talking today about knowing you can survive. So if you are going through something sticky, scary, and you're just really uncertain about how it's going to land, how it's going to end up, just really hold the space that you know you can survive. You've done it before. You will get through this. But we're going to give tips throughout today's show of how you can kind of get in that mindset. Also, I want to make sure you stay with us. Our inspirational guest coming up, Debby Montgomery Johnson. Wow, what a story. She was wrapped into a love scam. I mean, I won't even go into how much she lost, but it's a lot. And it's going to be a story that's really going to empower you to be a little bit more wise, to maybe ask questions. But by doing so, you're going to survive. You're going to get through it. Welcome back. I'm Nancy Solari, and this is the Living Full Out Show. And today we are talking about knowing you can survive. And I know that sounds easy, just rolls off the tongue, but it's not always easy when you're in the situation and you're really wondering if you can get beyond what you've done, what has happened. Well, that is why we look for inspirational guests who have been there, and they can say that, but they got to the other side. And Debby Montgomery Johnson has a very powerful story, and anyone who has wanted love and it hasn't worked out, well, she's been there. So welcome, Debby.
Thank you so much. I'm very glad to be here, Nancy.
So happy to have you. And Debby, just so my audience knows, I mean, she is a good apple. Let me tell you, she was always a good student. She grew up with her 3 brothers, her parents, I mean, from a small town in Vermont. You were just a good person. You still are, right? Now, they do say sometimes bad things happen to good people, so everybody stay with us. But I will tell you that you are somebody that I think has just a beautiful spirit. And in fact, as you went along in your life, you dibble-dabbled, you had a small stint in paralegal work that you did, and then you transitioned and went into become into intelligence in the Air Force. And it was when you were preparing for an event, because you were kind of the social chair of putting that together and so forth, that a good-looking captain said something to you very boldly that kind of stunned you. What did he say?
Muzi.com.
Welcome to Muzi.com, America's favorite free-to-play social casino, offering the fastest payouts around. With over 3,000 games at your fingertips, generous bonuses, and daily rewards, Muzi.com is the best. Play today at Moozi.com.
Muzi.com is a free-to-play social casino. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Play responsibly. Visit Muzi.com for more details.
Sign up today for an amazing welcome bonus at Moozi.com.
Muzi.com.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Well, he was sitting up at the bar in the officers' club out in Denver, and he looked at me and goes, "Someday, little girl, you're going to marry me." And I didn't even know the man, really. He was in my class in Intel school, but I looked at him, I said, "Captain Montgomery, you're a drunk." And he goes, "That might be true because I haven't said that to anybody else." It took me by surprise.
That is kind of nice to hear. I don't think I've heard that in the last month. But now it's interesting because he had been drinking, and it could have been that he went his way and you went yours. But the courtship went on. I mean, you found yourselves both getting assignments in Washington, D.C. You quickly went through the courtship, got married. You yourself had 4 kiddos, and life was good. But at some point along the way, he struggled with his weight, and we know we've all done that, and you've done that, right? But the day came when you thought that you were going to see him, and you didn't. What happened?
Well, the day came, he had actually left that afternoon he had a race car that he loved, and he had taken it over to the west coast of Florida, and he was going to be home the next day. He was just going to go over and get it tuned up. And so I just basically said, see you tomorrow, honey. And that was a Wednesday night. And on Thursday morning, I was in a meeting with the school district that I was working for, and I turned my phone off. And at a break around 10:30, 11 o'clock, I turned on my phone, and I saw all these messages. And one particularly was from my oldest son, who was 23 at the time. And the message to me was, Mom, Dad just died. I'm coming home to take care of everything. And Lou had not been sick. He was diabetic, but he had it under control. And he, I never expected him to live to 100, but I never expected him to die suddenly a day after he left home to go on a business trip. So threw my life into a different place.
That's heartbreaking because you never really got to say goodbye. And you were only, 52? Young on the spectrum of it all, and you had your kids. And you leaned on your parents. They helped, your kids helped, friends helped. But at the end of the day, you found yourself trying to work your job at a school, and also he had a vitamin business that you were now needing to take over and learn. And you found that you were your most peaceful and even allowed to grieve in the pool. What was it about swimming during that time that gave you that release?
It was great exercise, and I found that I could go there, I could be by myself, I could get in a routine of swimming laps, and I was very meticulous. It was 10 laps of one stroke, 10 of another. And I remember it was the one place where if somebody asked me how I was doing, I could cry. I could get in the pool, I could cry. No one would know I was crying because I had water on my face. I could talk to Lou as I was, talk to his spirit. I guess I was going back and forth and just looking at this line in the ceiling. And that gave me comfort. It gave me control. I wasn't eating very well, so I'd lost a lot of weight. And it was my one place of being athletic, sort of, but just taking control over me and not really having to deal with other people.
Well, and it's interesting because it wasn't really that long before people started saying, hey, Debbie, get out there, whether it be dating or you should do more. And it's also interesting because you felt like you no longer had a group that you fit in. What did that mean?
That was, suddenly I became a widow, and I really hated that word. I didn't feel like a widow even though I was by myself. So at that point, I didn't really fit into the family group. I think it was self-isolation. I didn't feel like I fit into the family group. My older kids were gone. I was here by myself with my youngest one, who was 15 at the time, and he was very busy. So particularly at church, I would go and I would sit by myself, or I would go to a gathering, and I would be there by myself. And I didn't want to be single because I'd been married for almost 26 years. I didn't want to be called single. I didn't fall into that category. I didn't want to be that widow. I didn't want to be the one that was the third wheel out. And it was really interesting because there were times when Lou had gotten very close to a lot of the guy friends, and they would come over to the house and help him with the company. And when he passed, I didn't know anything about his company, and I called on those guys, said, please come over and help me understand what his business was about. Those guys were married, and I knew their wives. I'd known them for 20, 25 years. And it was interesting the way they started looking at me now. That was I a threat to their husbands? Because I certainly didn't ever think so. I'd known them all for so long. And so that kind of put me in a weird place, too, with the women that I knew. So it was just a very uncomfortable spot all around.
Well, and I think that's important to understand just actually how isolating that was. A lot of love, a lot of support, but you can be around a lot of people and still feel lonely.
Absolutely. And the people that I actually gravitated towards were my old men friends who were in their 80s who had lost a spouse, and they just wanted someone to talk to. Well, that was the spot I was in. I wasn't ready to, get out there and date. I wasn't actually even looking for a relationship, but it was very good for me to talk to my old men friends who were more my dad's age, and I knew their wives before they had passed, and so that was a comfort. But I would go for a short period of time. I would go to a dinner or something, and I'd be there just enough time to show, and then I would leave, and that helped them out. It was fun, but it wasn't what I had always expected. Yeah,
exactly.
It wasn't fulfilling.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that because I think anyone who goes through, whether even a breakup, but definitely a loss of a spouse, I mean, I think a lot of people are nodding right now because they understand. Now, I want you to stay with us, Debbie, and everybody, when we come back, she filled that loneliness with a long-distance online relationship, but it definitely opened up a whole can of just uncertainties and heartbreaks. So stay with us. We'll come right back. It's about knowing you can survive. We'll be back.
Today in school, I learned a lot. In chemistry, I learned that no one likes me. In English, I learned that I'm disgusting. And in physics, I learned that I'm a loser.
Today in school, I learned that I'm ugly and useless. And in gym, I learned that I'm pathetic and a joke. In history, I learned that I'm trash.
Today in school, I learned that I have no friends. In English, I learned that I make people sick. And at lunch, I learned that I sit on my own because I smell. In chemistry, I learned that no one likes me.
In biology, I learned that I'm fat and stupid. And in math, I learned that I'm trash.
The only thing I didn't learn in school today?
The only thing I didn't learn today.
The only thing I didn't learn
is why no one ever helps.
Kids witness bullying every day. They want to help, but they don't know how. Teach them how to stop bullying and be more than a bystander at stopbullying.gov. A message from the Ad Council.
I'm Nancy Solari, certified life and business coach. I want to invite you to the Personal Development Bootcamp. During the bootcamp, we're going to be looking at taking those insecurities that you have and getting rid of them. We're also going to look at ways in which you can thrive and live a life full of purpose. Go to livingfullout.com/bootcamp, livingfullout.com/bootcamp to sign up. I believe in you, and here's to you living your life full out.
They'll challenge your authority.
Put your seatbelt on. Not the box.
They'll try to break your will. They'll push you to the edge of your sanity. Because that's what kids do. But this car is your territory, not theirs. Defend it. Who makes the payments? Who cleans it? Who drives it? You do. That's who. And in here, your word is law. So when you say you won't move until everyone's buckled up, you won't budge an inch. Until you hear that click. Never give up until they buckle up. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council. For more information, visit safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup.
7 million children suffer from asthma, more than any other chronic disease. Most asthma attacks are caused by allergic reactions to allergens, including those left behind by cockroaches and mice. In fact, 82% of U.S. households contain mouse allergens, and cockroaches are found in up to 98% of urban homes. How can you protect your family? Find out at pestworld.org. A message from the National Pest Management Association and the American College of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology.
Get it, slip it, cuff it, check it. Talk to doctor now and share it.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it twice a day.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it in the morning and before dinner.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it, and share it with my doctor. Nearly 1 in 2 U.S. adults have high blood pressure. That's why it's important to self-monitor your blood pressure in 4 easy-to-remember steps. It starts with a monitor.
Now that I know my blood pressure numbers, I talked with my doctor. We're getting those numbers down.
Get it, slip it, cuff it, check it. Talk to doctor now and share it.
Be next to talk to your doctor about your blood pressure numbers. Get down with your blood pressure. Self-monitoring is power. Learn more at manageyourbp.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Heart Association, and the American Medical Association. In partnership with the Office of Minority Health and Health Resources and Services Administration.
Music!
Welcome to Moosey.com, America's favorite free-to-play social casino, offering the fastest payouts around. With over 3,000 games at your fingertips, generous bonuses, and daily rewards, Moosey.com is the best. Play today at Moozi.com.
Moosey.com is a free-to-play social casino. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Play responsibly. Visit Moosey.com for more details.
Sign up today for an amazing welcome bonus at Moozi.com.
Moosey.com.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
You're listening to Living Full Out with Nancy Solari. With Nancy's expertise, you'll learn how to embrace your potential and strive for success. If you have a question or need further support, send us an email at connect@livingfullout.com. Now, here's Nancy.
Welcome back. I'm Nancy Solari, and this is the Living Full Out Show. And today we're talking about knowing you can survive. And our inspirational guest today, Debby Montgomery Johnson, is such a great example of that. So I want to bring her back into the interview. So much to get through. So welcome back, Debby.
Thanks, Nancy.
Now, to fill that lonely space, you did go online, and interestingly enough, you didn't want anyone local. You were okay with it being someone not in your area. And lo and behold, after seeing many guys that were the wrong fit online, you came across Dr. Eric Cole. And he at the time lived in Houston, and he was an independent contractor and for a company, and he, had a son named Kenny, and, you ended up writing back and forth and having this dialogue. Eventually even he moved, overseas, and, you stayed with him there, that didn't turn you off. But along the way, you started to question things. And what I think is so interesting is when it comes to love and maybe being scammed or duped or any of that, you're smart. I mean, you were in Air Force intelligence. You did your homework. You called the company he worked for. You asked questions. But he always had an answer for those questions. And so what was it that kept you going in that relationship?
What kept me going is it filled a spot of loving family. I've always said that family comes first for me. And the way our relationship started slowly and then moved on to, our family and discussions about what had happened to his wife, what happened to my husband, we really connected and bonded through our conversations. And when I say that, that was all written at the time. And it drew me into his family and him into my family. And I felt comfortable with that. I never expected anybody to not be transparent and not tell me the truth. I am a very trustworthy person, and I fell for him and the whole in our story and the love story. It made me just feel comfortable and again safe, because it's funny to say this, but I didn't need anybody in person at the time. I'd been married for so long. I just wanted someone to communicate with, someone to talk to, someone to build a bond through friendship and our mutual family events, if you can put it that way.
Well, and I mean, honestly, it had gone so far that you were talking to his sister Mary in London and his son Kenny, and you were having all these conversations, and you were making plans for him to come visit, and you were going to the Hampton Inn, looking at hotel rooms, and, your parents were, for the most part supportive, and, your kids knew about it, but they just said, don't give money. They just, everybody, it just seemed like, you had done your homework and this was a safe relationship. But he started asking for money. At first it was, just $80 to help a friend get on a dating site. Then it was, that he wanted to make you power of attorney and starting to ask you to Western Union money instead of, doing a direct transfer through the bank. And and on it went. And you started giving 50,000 and 80,000 and 100,000. And at what point, because I know you were dipping into savings, you were dipping into your retirement. I mean, what point did you ever get curious? Did you ever think, I can't do any more?
Quite often, and I used to say that I was that damn Yankee. I didn't like to give money away to anybody, but because he'd become family, and we talked a lot about businesses. I had a business, he had a business. I know sometimes you don't get paid until after the job is done, and I was under the impression that was happening. He would get paid when the job was finished. It was overseas, and they were things that came up that I didn't quite understand, even though I'd had some legal background. But there were tariffs, and there were just transportation and shipping things that came up. And I questioned it. I always questioned it. I talked to his attorney. I talked to the attorney's bureau in London to make sure, that his attorney was a legit attorney. Turned out that he wasn't, obviously, but I did ask those questions, and when I did, Eric always had that answer. He always said, I'll pay you back. I'll pay you back with interest. It'll get back. When I questioned about my retirement accounts, I had a certain timeline that I had to get it repaid. When I took a loan against an IRA or something, I had to get it repaid, and I was so concerned about the penalties, and so that put a little bit of tension and stress between us. But again, he always promised it. Now, did I question at one point, and I did, if I stop now, I would have lost everything I'd already given him. And I want to make this perfectly clear. I didn't have all that money in the bank. I came up with it. I sold jewelry. I sold the investments. Because I felt he was going to be my family, I came up with it. And I would do that for anybody in my family. Well,
that's why you're a good apple.
Not now, but
No, that's why you're a good person, Debbie, like I said earlier. I mean, you just are a good soul. But the day came when you got that ding on your computer through, instant messaging through Yahoo and all, and you were excited to talk to him, and you talked a little bit all throughout the day, but it was a statement that he asked you, and that really just jarred you. I want you to tell us what that statement was, but then I also want you to tell me how you discovered who he was.
He asked me the question, wow, how do you feel about forgiveness? And I thought that was kind of unusual, but we'd had a lot of spiritual discussions, and I started responding, and we got disconnected and came back a couple hours later, and he got back on it. He goes, how do you feel about forgiveness? And at that point, I'm like, what did I do that we need to be talking about forgiveness? And he went on and said, Deb, there's something I've got to tell you, and it's going to hurt you. And at that point, I was like, nah, you don't really need to hurt me. And he goes, no, I need to confess something, and it's going to hurt you. And once in my marriage, I have a confession to make, and I think if anybody hears that, if you're married, it's not something that you want to hear. And so when he came on, he actually, in writing, he said, I have to confess that this has all been a scam. And you can imagine, it's gone on for 2 years. I've not met him in person, but we've communicated every day. I had 4,000 pages of written communication, written journal. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, now you're sick. There's something wrong. You're in the hospital. What is it? And he said, no, I have to confess that this has been a fake. And then I questioned, well, what about Mary? What about Kenny? What about the attorney? What about all these things? Where's my money? And he said, I'll explain it. And I said, I think you're lying to me now. And I said, you've got to prove to me you're not lying. And that's when he said, there is a little camera on Yahoo Chat, and I will come on live. Well, for 2 years I'd been saying, can't we Skype? Can't we do something? We didn't have FaceTime. We didn't have those things. I said, how do we do this? And he walked me through it and visualized this. I'm sitting at my desk with two screens, and I have my handsome Brit on my screensavers, and up pops this little camera, and I'm looking at this dark-haired, dark-eyed, dark-skinned young man with a big smile on his face. And I actually have a picture of that. I had my phone with me, and I took a picture of that young man, and it's in my book, The Woman Behind the Smile. But I looked at that, and it was like my brick wall moment, because now I'm looking at this young man who's saying to me, can we keep this going? And I'm thinking, are you out of your mind? But then my intelligent hat kicked in. I'm thinking, how can I catch him? I've seen enough FBI shows. How do I catch him? What do I do to keep him engaged? And I did ask him, I said, why did you do this? How did you do this? Who's involved in this? And I said, are you still doing it to other women? And he said that he had in the past, but that he wasn't going to. There's a whole story, and I don't know if after that reveal, the rest is true or not. But it was my brick wall moment.
Well, and good that you finally saw who he was, and actually good that you got closure. You know, you didn't get closure really with Lou when he passed away due to that sudden heart attack. At least in some way with this, seeing him, knowing who he was, you got closure. But all in all, how much, when you tallied how much you had given him, how much was that?
It was $1,080,762. And I can hear the
No, I know it's gasping, and we all know that you didn't have that money. You found that money, and I know 100,000 of that was from your parents because they believed in you. They wanted love for you. Why was that the hardest to lose?
Because my parents trusted me. And it was probably just short of a year and a half in when I asked them to help me out. And I asked my dad, actually. I didn't want Mom to know. And Dad's like, there's nothing that I've done in my lifetime, and they were married at the time over 60 years, he goes, that I haven't talked to your mom about. So he and Mom talked about it, and they had no idea that this had been a scam or anything. None of us did, obviously. And so they offered me the $100,000, and I felt the worst about that of all the money I lost because my parents trusted me, and I was being a guardian of, steward of their hard-earned money, and I just felt terrible. That was the one regret of this whole thing that I felt awful about, and I've repaid them over the years, and that was the money I needed to repay, but. That's what the criminals do, though. They do try to bring other people in, and they'll ask you to get other people involved, business associates, friends, family, whoever, just to keep the money going to them.
Well, and you fell into all those traps. Now, I want everybody to know, though, Debbie did find love. And we are running out of time, but I just want to say, so people understand, through friends who matchmaked, you did meet your current husband, CJ, and now you're in a relationship that is honest and local. What does that feel like? What a refreshing concept.
Geographically desirable and trustworthy. And it was incredible. And it was one thing that, we've been together almost 12 years now, and he has been my greatest supporter, other than my mom. He's been my greatest supporter because he understands that telling the story and understanding what happened is so important to recovery, and support from people is very, very important. And most victims, which I like to call survivors now, don't get that, and that's important.
Well, I am so glad that it does have a happy ending, truly. Thank you so much, Debbie, for being on today's show and sharing your story. And, we're just so proud of you here. And, we'll keep an eye on you, more to come. But for everybody listening, just like Debbie, if you have a story to tell, reach out to us at connect@livingfullout.com and share what you went through and how you got through it, because that is how this community is built. We're all meant here to inspire and to share what we've learned and pay it forward.